I'm delighted to say we're joined by our Friday regular, David Ornstein from The Athletic, and Dapo, who hosts the Counter Attack podcast. Right, gentlemen, very good morning. David, let's start with you. You were at the game last night. Did the best team win over those two legs?
Well, certainly the best team won last night, Gail. Over the two legs, I thought Arsenal did really well to show their resilience in the first leg, coming back from the Xhaka sending off to dig in for a 0-0 draw. But in the second leg, I thought to an extent it was men against boys. Liverpool showing the class that's led them to the Champions League and Premier League trophies under Jurgen Klopp, albeit their first domestic cup final, I think, since 2016. They've not won one as a club since 2012, and now they'll have the opportunity to do so against Chelsea late in February. But in terms of Arsenal, I think they'll be really disappointed. They looked like they were lacking in fitness and sharpness, which is perhaps understandable off the back of their absences through COVID injury in the Africa Cup of Nations. The Thomas Partey thing, which we'll come on to talk about, I think was a bit misguided, but it's easy to say with hindsight. I thought Liverpool were clinical, mature, professional, and they deserve to go through to the final, absolutely. And it should be a really good one at Wembley.
Dapo, I've got this right, you're an Arsenal fan?
I am an Arsenal fan, yes.
So I'm going to go easy on you, okay? Because I know you won't have enjoyed the game last night, but Jota, you know, Klopp saying he's world class. I mean, he was the difference, wasn't he? Arsenal played well in spells, but when you've got a player like that on the field, it's so difficult. Would you agree with Klopp's assessment that Jota is indeed a world class player?
I'm one of those old school, you know, guys who doesn't just throw around a world class tag, you know, so easily, and I would understand why Klopp would say that, being it's his player. But Diogo Jota is a really, really good player, and I think if he can maintain the level he's playing at over the next couple of seasons, then he most definitely will be, you know, a world class player. When you look at the players that they have who are world class, and we look at Mo Salah, he is the difference in a lot of their games and in the big games. And if Diogo Jota can go down that route, then no doubt they're going to have a world class player on their hands.
Okay.
David,
well dodged, Dapo. Well
yeah. David, let's talk a bit of Arsenal, shall we? Let's come back to Partey. You suggested then, with hindsight, it was the wrong decision. I mean, can you understand why Arteta did it, given how thin they are on the ground in midfield? And then let's talk sending offs, because it's the 14th red card, isn't it, under Arteta, which seems a large amount, and it's the same mistakes that players seem to be making again and again, especially when you think Xhaka's had 5 sendings off in his career.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a disciplinary issue on and off the pitch, if we're judging by what Arsenal said when they stripped Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang of the captaincy for what they described as his latest disciplinary breach. I'm aware of going back over Mikel Arteta's reign and Unai Emery's before that, some issues around timekeeping and punctuality to training. And then there's the sendings off on the pitch, which smack of a bit of immaturity, naivety, unprofessionalism, staying calm in key moments. We saw Gabriel with his 2 quick yellow cards recently against Manchester City. It's costing Arsenal dear, and Mikel Arteta has been clear about that last night. He seems to see the problem. It's far harder to find the solution. In terms of Partey, I can understand his temptation to bring him back quickly. Arsenal have been extremely thin in midfield, and that's why they're looking to strengthen in that area, pursuing the signing of Artemelo from Juventus. No breakthrough on that as yet. Mohamed El Neni, another backup option, is at the Africa Cup of Nations still. They let Ainsley Maitland-Niles go on loan to Roma. And I think it's a real problem area. So Thomas Partey comes back from the Africa Cup of Nations. He's physically fit, and Arteta's decided to bring him on. He'd only just landed in the country. He'd played 3 grueling matches in a tough climate out in Cameroon in a losing cause. And I don't think it was the right thing to do at all. From what I could see at my vantage point, quite close to the pitch, he didn't warm up that much, but I'll have to watch it back to see if that was the case. And it seems a pretty disastrous outcome, despite Arteta doing it with good intentions.
Yeah, Dapo, I'll ask you the same thing about Partey. Did I hear you right there in the break? You're in Jamaica right now. Did you say that?
Lucky you
I am,
if you
yes,
are.
I am in Jamaica right now. Yeah.
Right, so I'm going to put you in Thomas Partey's shoes, right? You've just flown back to London, and then within a few hours you're being brought on in a League Cup semi-final against Liverpool, you know, one of the best teams in the world. Was it a mistake by Arteta to bring him on at all? And he's had such little time to prepare and really recover from a long trip back from the Africa Cup of Nations?
Yeah, as David said earlier on, in hindsight, you know, hindsight is a wonderful thing. And, you know, if we had known how it would have turned out, we maybe would have, you know, played him. But coming back from African Cup of Nations, you know, you've had 3 matches, you know, in that heat, different climate, and, you know, you've had a long journey back to come straight back into the team the day you land. It just seemed a bit off. My reaction, and I even tweeted last night that I couldn't believe that he was actually in the squad for the game, and he looked a bit off it when I watched it back. He looked like he was still, you know, on Cameroon timing and, you know, still tackling like he's still at the AFCON. So, you know, it was a bad decision from Arteta, but what, you know, I'm pretty sure he had all the, you know, all the signs from the coaching staff and from the player himself that he would be ready. But now, you know, he should have been waiting to play against Burnley, but he's going to miss that Burnley game now through suspension with yet another red card again.
And another headache for Arteta to deal with in midfield, David. They are thin there. Where are the goals going to come from as well for Arsenal? Alexander Lacazette with that one chance. And what's the latest with Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang? What can you tell us?
Well, he had 2 chances, didn't he? He hit the crossbar early on and then had a chance just after half-time. Eddie Nketiah came on. He started at Anfield but got dragged off when Xhaka was sent off. He's not really weighing in with the goals. And they don't have any other options. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang was dropped, of course. He was stripped of the captaincy. He was made to train alone, and I'm not sure those bridges can be repaired. Arsenal do have interest in him from Saudi Arabia in the form of Al Hilal, I'm told. There have been other reports about Al Nassr that I don't have any updated information on, but Al Hilal have offered to take him on loan and cover his salary, but it's whether he would want to do that. I'm really not sure he would be ready for that move at this point of his career. There's also interest from Paris Saint-Germain, among others in Europe, which may be more appealing to him from a football perspective at 32 years old. But I doubt that if it's going to be a club that are going to struggle to pay his full wage, that he's going to compromise on that, because it isn't his decision to drop out of the Arsenal team. It was theirs to drop him, so they may have to formulate some wage contribution if they want to get him off their books by the end of the transfer window. These offers, by the sounds of it, seem to be loans with some level of option to buy, whether it's an obligation or an option contingent on certain things. I think there's a lot of a lack of clarity at the moment on exactly what's going to happen. And of course, if the window shuts and he's still at Arsenal, then a huge decision awaits for Mikel Arteta on whether they reintegrate him into the squad. Can they rebuild those bridges? I'm not sure. A lot of water has gone under them now, and it's going to be a big question. He's under contract until 2023. I think in an ideal world for Arsenal, maybe they will receive a suitable offer and get him on his way and try to bring somebody in before that deadline, which will not be easy. And if not, they've got to find goals from somewhere before the end of the season and when they readdress it in the summer. But where those goals are going to come from, I don't know, because they don't have plenty of them in the team.
How do you solve a problem like Aubameyang, Dapo? I mean, what Arsenal don't want is to turn into Mesut Ozil Part 2 and for him just to be there picking up this huge wage and not able to move him on. I mean, there's clearly interest in Aubameyang now. So should Arsenal be either trying to rebuild those bridges, as David was talking about, that might be difficult, or should they be just trying to get him out of the club as quickly as possible? What's your thoughts?
I think we should try and rebuild those bridges with Aubameyang. I'm saying this because, you know, if we're led to believe what we see in the press, you know, their hunt for a striker is actually a really difficult one right now, and we need goals. Lacazette doesn't seem like he's going to start scoring 20 goals before the end of the season, and Nketiah is really struggling. And with Aubameyang, I still believe that there is that striker in there that can, you know, deliver those goals needed for us to get into those Champions League spots. And I just think that we need to find a solution here. If we're not going to be able to bring in someone of the quality needed, then with Aubameyang, we need to just try to find a way for everyone to just settle down and get him playing and back to scoring again.
And David, even without Thomas Partey in the side yesterday, it was pretty strong Arsenal team, wasn't it? I'm sure Antonio Conte would have been keeping a close eye on who Arteta put out after the North London derby was postponed. The Premier League have spoken, haven't they, and said they are going to be looking at the way they decide whether or not to call these games off. What did you make of the team last night? What do you make of what the Premier League might have to do going forward?
Well, I think the team last night showed that despite a strong look to it, that Arsenal had been struggling behind the scenes, because I don't think they looked anywhere near peak fitness or sharpness. And I know that there was a point earlier in the week at which this match might have been in doubt, because they were losing some more players to little injury issues from training and also illness, not COVID related to my knowledge. And therefore there has been a problem there in terms of numbers. The big controversy, of course, is this rule of the Premier Leagues, which does allow for more than COVID issues, injuries, Africa Cup of Nations, provided that there is some COVID in the camp. And Arsenal did have a positive test before that North London derby. They did have one subsequent to the Premier League's ruling as well. I do think the Premier League are going to need to tighten it up, just because there's so much dissatisfaction among the clubs. They've kind of opened a door and now clubs are walking through it to satisfy the criteria. Maybe the only solution is going to have to be that you've got to play your matches. You've got to find the players from within your first team, your under 23s, your academy, even if it's one-sided. And some people have said, well, what if a Southampton play their kids against a Manchester City? It's going to be a cricket score. But perhaps that might have to be the better solution than matches being called off. And there's such a backlog now that there could be a real problem on their hands. Changing rules mid-season may open the Premier League to legal threat, and that's another headache, but it seems to be one of their own making, but in unfortunate circumstances, because we're living through a pandemic, unprecedented situations, and it's just unenviable. But yeah, Arsenal have had a problem. They seem to be in better shape now. There will be eyes looking around them at the Premier League in whether they really needed to call that match off. They certainly think so from people I speak to. They're absolutely adamant. And hopefully for everyone, this episode can be put behind us and we can focus on the football.